I'm about to demold this, and I'll tell you guys some tips on how to demold it. Alright guys, I just took out the containing walls. So your two-part mold should look something like this, and as you can see, it's not perfect. There's ragged edges, and it's not, leveled up completely, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter. So what you guys are going to do now is find the seam line of the two-part mold, and the seam line is usually the layer of Vaseline that you guys applied earlier. And I don't know if you guys can see this. There's like, I see Vaseline right there. So this must be the seam line, and you're going to follow it all the way to the top, and then you're going to insert your screwdriver right where the seam line is, just like that. And the purpose of the hammer is so that you guys can hammer it down so that it will actually get stuck on the actual crack itself. So, and I can't do that right now since I'm holding the camera, so I'll show that to you guys. Okay, I just used the hammer to, jam the screwdriver into the two-part mold, and as you can see, it created like a huge seam line crack along the mold itself. And as you guys can see, if I do this, it kind of moves. I don't know if you guys can see that. If I, tilt the screwdriver going to the left, it should move, just like that. And if that happens, if you guys see like a, like a seam line, what you guys need to do is use your chisel and poke it somewhere else. Like as you can see, the top part is already opened. Now what you guys need to do is find another spot, like I don't know, like somewhere right here or on the other side, and do the same thing through the screwdriver. Use the hammer and jam the chisel into the sides of the mold so that you have a three-part area of opening the mold. So yeah, I'll show you guys what it looks like if if the screwdriver and the two chisels are in place. Alright, as you guys can see, I've lodged in what do you call it, the chisel and the other chisel, and also the screwdriver. And as you guys can see, when I did this, it actually made the seam line bigger. So if the line, if like the crack itself, if it's huge like that, that means that either the front half or the back half of the mold will, come off first. Now remember what I told you guys. If you a technique that is used to demold molds is basically, simply lodging in the tool and shifting it either this way or that way. If you're gonna do it this way, this part is gonna come off. Now if you're gonna apply force this way, then the front half will come off. So try to remember that. So so yeah, I don't know what else to say. Just make sure you guys especially the screwdriver, if you guys use the demolding tools, make sure you guys don't stab it. Make sure you guys don't stab it all the way in, because it might break your mannequin head, and also it may crack the actual detail coat that's inside the mold. So don't dig it too deep. And also make sure you guys once again, make sure you guys don't just try and open the mold itself from the top. Make sure you guys try from the sides. So yeah, experiment, the different positions. So yeah, it's basically demolding. And I'll show you guys how it looks like when it's, demolded. So remember these techniques. Make sure you guys use different sized chisels, and also get a screwdriver and get a hammer. A hammer is always needed. So yeah, this mold will be successful, I hope. So yeah, follow these tips and techniques, and your demolding, your demolding step should be fine if you follow my tips. So that's basically it. That's demolding. Okay, as you can see, I took out the first part, or the first half of the mold successfully. And usually, if your sculpture is too detailed, usually the clay will actually latch on to the mold itself, as you can see right here. And if that happens, don't panic. Depending on the clay you used, you can easily just yank it out, kind of like that. But I'll show you guys. I'll tell you guys some techniques that I use to take out the clay that's stuck in the mold itself. So I'll show you guys some tips later. Right now, I'm just trying to take out the other mold. Now the purpose of adding the Vaseline is basically, splitting up the two-part molds. As you can see, this is where the Vaseline was applied, and remember, without the Vaseline, your two-part mold will not, split open. It's not going to create the seam line that you guys need. So make sure to add the Vaseline. That's very, very important. So yeah, right now I just have to concentrate on taking out the second half, which is trickier than taking out the first. Now, if you guys are doing a half mask, what you're basically doing is, let me see. Alright, pretend this is the half mask. Pretend this is the armature sculpture, and the clay sculpture is still inside the mold. So imagine this as the half mask. What you guys are doing for a half mask is basically, taking the chisel or screwdriver, like lodging, sticking it in there, and what you guys need to do is, apply pressure going that way, so that, this part, like the mold itself, will shift that way. And again, make sure you guys use different size chisels, and make sure you guys, switch to different positions, so you guys can take off the mold. Now, when you guys are doing a half mask mold, if you guys are trying to demold that, there's a risk of actually damaging your armature, since you guys are, embedding the actual screwdriver or the chisel in the mannequin head itself. So yeah, basically what you guys need to do is, remember, apply force that way. See how that works? See how you're pushing that way, and you're forcing the actual mold itself to shift that way. So yeah, that's how you demold a half mask. Alright guys, I'm actually, the second part of the mold is actually stuck. So I'm gonna share some tricks and tips for you guys, since this may happen to you also. Now, usually the second part is usually the one that you guys have to pry out. So, one tip, or there's actually 3 techniques that you can use. Now, the first technique is basically when you're using oil-based clay. Alright, not modeling clay, oil-based clay. Now, if you have a similar problem like I do, like right now, if this was oil-based clay, what I can do is basically put it in the oven and heat it up until it kind of, like softens up, and then